By the year 2026, trust in American newspapers dropped to 18%, while confidence in the medical system, public schools, and Congress hit multi-decade lows. We have reached a point where finding common ground on basic, verifiable facts feels nearly impossible. Scholars call this condition an epistemic crisis. It happens when the actual mechanisms a society uses to determine what is true and what is false simply break down. It is tempting to look at this environment and conclude that one political faction is constantly lying, while your side is valiantly defending the truth. This diagram outlines a different reality. Over a 15-year baseline from 2011 to 2026, both the American left and right actively degraded the public's ability to analyze information when they held executive power. They just achieved it using diametrically opposite methods. If you find navigating the news to be a cognitively exhausting experience, it is by design. To understand how we arrived in this vacuum, we have to map the hidden architectures of information control used by both sides. When the political left or institutional center-left holds executive power, as seen during the Obama and Biden administrations, their favored strategy is narrative saturation. Because the First Amendment prohibits the government from banning speech outright, the state instead deputizes private tech platforms to enforce its policies. The expansive discovery process in the landmark 2024 Supreme Court case Murthy v. Missouri revealed how federal agencies exerted continuous pressure on social media companies to suppress dissenting views. The government funds a massive network of NGOs to engineer consensus. They define acceptable truth, feeding directives into social media algorithms. The system applies soft pressure, magnifying the approved narrative to dominate the feed, while systematically burying dissenting analysis. Unlike traditional authoritarian censorship, which relies on strict prohibition, this approach operates in a Huxleyan mode. It weaponizes the digital age, using sheer volume, network density, and emotional engagement to dictate the boundaries of acceptable analysis. The end result is a condition called informational learned helplessness. A dissenting citizen is rarely thrown in jail or explicitly silenced. They are simply made unreadable, drowned out in an inescapable ocean of state-approved noise. When power swings to the political right during both Trump administrations, the approach flips to a blunt Orwellian playbook known as structural suppression. Instead of flooding the zone with approved messaging, the right attacks reality's raw material directly. At the Environmental Protection Agency and other departments, the administration aggressively scrubbed thousands of federal web pages, deleting vital, decades-long datasets on climate change and environmental justice. They also utilize strict semantic bans by legally prohibiting federal agencies from using specific demographic, sociological, or scientific terms in their research. The state manufactures deliberate blind spots. This suppression extends deep into the structural production of science. We saw the punitive firing of federal statisticians, midterm dismissals of science board members, and the intentional defunding of peer-reviewed journals to physically halt the flow of new, independent analysis. But the right also deploys its own chaotic form of narrative saturation. Articulated explicitly by former strategist Steve Bannon, the tactic is to relentlessly flood the media ecosystem with lawsuits, contradictory claims, and manufactured scandals, specifically designed to overwhelm the press's capacity to investigate. This methodology achieves uncongenial control. It completely bypasses the need to persuade you by simply starving you of the linguistic terms and empirical data you would need to formulate a critique of the state. Whether you are cognitively drowned by the left's institutional noise or starved by the right's deliberate data vacuums, the psychological toll on the electorate is the same. This represents epistemic fragmentation. A 15-year oscillation of manipulation has fractured our society into isolated realities, detached from shared facts. Every power change ratchets up the precedence of the last. Historically bipartisan institutions either become weaponized tools of the information war or its casualties. Fixing this requires rigid, structural solutions. We must legally codify the independence of federal statistical agencies so their leaders cannot be fired without cause. We have to explicitly ban the coercion of tech platforms and guarantee independent funding for web archives to permanently protect public data. True democratic resilience cannot be achieved by simply trading censorship tools between political factions. We have to demand the absolute dismantling of these architectures, because regardless of who sits in the Oval Office, state-driven information control